try to recite the entirety of the Final Fantasy X story by memory. It's been a hot minute since I played it, but it's one of the two Final Fantasy games that I've replayed the most, the other being Final Fantasy X-2. So hopefully I remember as much as possible, but I will forget stuff, and stuff is going to be out of order, so sorry about that. So the story starts off back in Xanarkand, and we begin with Titus, or Titus, signing autographs for his fans. He's about to go play Blitzball. Then we have a big old fancy cinematic. Titus is playing Blitzball. He's doing his best. He's doing great. All of a sudden, bam, giant monster shows up. Later we find out it's Sin. Destruction, fires, everything is going bad. Then, best friend, family of friend, Orin shows up, gives Titus a sword. We start fighting monsters. Eventually, once we get towards the end, Titus almost falls off a road. Orin starts talking to the monster, and then we're sucked up, and then we wind up in all alone in the middle of an ocean. We fight some monsters. We try to, we're cold. We try to start a fire. Eventually, we're saved by some people. Later, that turns out to be the Outbed people. They feed us and help us as long as we do our part while stuck on this ship that they're on. But eventually Titus once again gets separated and lands up in an ocean. A prettier ocean that's much warmer than the last one he got stuck in. Then he gets greeted by a Blitzball and does a really cool trick shot. And when we're introduced to Waka and his Blitzball team, the the Besaid Aurochs. I don't quite remember. They're a crappy team. Everyone knows it. When Titus introduced himself, he says he is from Xanarkand. And everyone's like, no you're not. He corrects himself and says actually, he's been affected by Sin's toxins. Now he was told to say this on the boat with the Outbed when he was first rescued. Riku told him to do this, and he's going to keep repeating this excuse for the rest of the story pretty much. So once Waka helps him, takes him to the island, introduces him to people on the island, and also kind of hopes to have him be a part of his Blitzball team, because he's better than everyone else on the team. Besides, I guess, Waka. We're introduced to the girl, Yuna, who is a summoner. She just finished her trials and has gotten her first Aeon. This is her last day before she starts her pilgrimage. After that all happens, they are taking her out the next day to go to Kilika Island. They wave goodbye, and then they're on the boat, and Yuna and Titus really start to get to know each other. And I think this is when Titus tells Yuna who his dad is, which is Jet. And then Yuna says, Sir Jet, because she seems familiar with who Titus's dad is. She says her dad was a summoner as well who completed his pilgrimage, and one of his guardians was a man named Jet. But Titus can't believe that it's his dad. Then on the boat, they get attacked by Sin. This is the second time for Titus. They are attacked, they fight Sin. Their boat gets kind of messed up, as part of the arena, but the religion, Yevon says, yeah, that's okay. It's because it makes people happy, and it's one of the few joys that everyone likes due to this devastating time of sin. So we go through all of this. You can do, I think you're at least you're required to do one game of blitzball. I was never good at it, but no matter what you win or lose, this is Waka's last time competing, as he's going to be a full-time summoner for Yuna. Oh, I forgot to introduce Yuna's other guardians, which is Lulu, the goth chick, Waka, and Kamari, who is the big cat man. You also met him on Basay Island. Forgot to mention it. But as the tournament is going on, it gets interrupted by fiends. I can't remember if Sin is there. I don't think he is. I just think fiends appear. And also, Orin does show up at this point as well. Fiends attack, and Seymour summons his giant Aeon Anima to help with destroy the monsters or fiends, and Orin is also there. After all of that is taken care of, Orin asks to join along with Yuna's pilgrimage. He also indicates to them that he knows who Tidus is, which everyone is like surprised, but also confirms to Yuna that Tidus must be the son of Jet if also Orin knows who he is, and Tidus does confirm that he knows who Orin is. During the background moment, Tidus confronts Orin like, what is going on here? It goes on from there. He just join the pilgrimage. You'll figure it out. There's also that famous laughing scene at this point where Yuna and Tidus do that big awkward laugh, which I think is crept on way too much. And then from here they go on to Mihin Road to continue Yuna's pilgrimage. Along Mihin, they do meet another summoner when you can challenge her, and then I think you meet members of the Youth League, which are, they don't follow like Yu Yevon because they use like Machina, but they're basically another group of people who are trying to beat Sin in their own way. That's against Yevon's teachings. And from there you move on again, and I forget where you go to next. I think you go to, on your way to Jose Temple, I think is where you go to next. There might be some stuff I'm missing along the way, but I do think you also stop by the Youth League as well, where you'll meet them trying to fight against Sin. They have gathered up some of Sin's spawns, and when you gather a bunch of Yin spawns, which are basically fiends that came from Sin, Sin is sure to turn up. They have gathered up a bunch of Machina and other youth members to come together to fight Sin, and then they have this giant weapon. Now, who else is there is Seymour and like another Yevon guy who's a head leader. He used to be a friend of Orin's as well. They're there to kind of like supervise and see what's going on, which throws Waka in a big fit because he doesn't understand why are Yevon higher-ups there to watch this when using Machina is like illegal and blasphemous, which Seymour says just to ignore it, which just like throws his head for a loop. This fight happens. Sin shows up, basically kills almost everybody, and it was a futile attempt to try to kill Sin. It doesn't work out. All our characters make it, but a lot of other people die. Yuna does her sending, so do some other summoners, and we go on from there. She goes to Jose Temple, gets another summon, and then she goes on to Wado Salam, which is where Seymour is technically from. Guado are another race of people that are featured in Final Fantasy X. They are like elf-like people with really long arms and fingernails. Ramari is from another group of people which look like giant blue cats with horns. Guado, going on. Yuna's whole thing is she wants to do anything to make Spira happy, whether it's defeating sin or having this marriage. So she does plan to marry Seymour, but she still is going to continue her pilgrimage. And Titus is like, what? Do you even love the guy? I don't understand. That really doesn't matter to her in the grand scheme of things at this time. But she hasn't made her final decision. So the story continues, but she where the Albed have got their place of home, since they are discriminated against. I think mostly because of Yevon, as they do not believe in the teachings of Yevon. Once they're there, they end up being under attack by the Guado and some fiends, and destruction happens there. They meet other summoners. We met them along the story. One is named Donna, and I forget who the other one was, but they get out and they're saved, and this is when you finally get the the airship. We also meet Sid, who is Riku's father, and Brother, who is Riku's brother. His name is Brother, and he's Riku's brother. This is also Yuna's uncle. Riku is Yuna's cousin, but Yuna's mother, I think, was also kind of kicked out from the family because she married a non-Albed and a guy who followed Yevon. So they figure out that Yuna was already caught by people of Yevon, and she's at Pavel, and they already got that wedding started. And what do they see? They see Seymour there, who, like I mentioned before, is not really dead. So once they get there, you see an epic cutscene where they, like fly on some wires, or like not fly, but like grind down some wires, and they go there to help rescue Yuna. Once there, they fight all the way up there, right up to where Yuna and Seymour are about to get married. Technically, they kind of get married right before they're about to kill her guardians and friends. Yuna jumps off a building but saves herself by summoning an Aeon Valafor, which is her first one that can fly. They're separated, and the rest of them go all escape into the temple. Once in the temple, they all gather there, and Yuna completes her trial for the next summon, which was Bahamut, but they're still once again captured once again and separated. Yuna goes on trial and says, "Hey, don't you know that Seymour is an unsent?" Well, like the people who were there for the trial, a couple of them knew. Well, yeah, of course he's an unsent. We don't care. But while one of the Yevon guys, who is also a Ronso, like Kamari, was like, "No, he doesn't. I can't remember. He doesn't say that outright, but he clearly was not aware that Seymour was an unsent." And I think another guy also reveals that he is also an unsent, which makes no sense. Like, if this guy's been living a long time, how would you have not known he's an unsent? Like, I'm assuming he's human, and humans in this sphere have regular lifespans. This man looks old, so unless he died at 80 and he's like 110, I don't know why no one else caught on to his aging. But back to the story. Once again, they have to escape from them all over again, and they make it to Makalania Woods, I think, which is right outside Pavel, on the way to Mount Kakaset, which is where they need to go anyway. Yuna and Riku have this big romantic scene. They kiss. I mean, Yuna and Tidus. Riku and Yuna are cousins. It's Tidus and Yuna have a big romantic moment. Yuna is still determined to continue her pilgrimage. She is not stopping. And from what they've heard, from all the way they've heard, one of the Ronso Yevon member has left Yevon, since clearly he wasn't on the up and up on everything going on. And on their way to the Ronso tribe, they encounter other Ronso. And in this where we realize that Kamari is a shorter Ronso. And you notice from the get-go that he has a cut, his horn is broken. And he encounters the two Ronso that broke his horn. A little game advice: if you ever play Final Fantasy X, you should really use Kamari up to this point, or at least get him up to a good enough level, because there's a fight here is a Kamari only fight. I made the mistake of not having Kamari leveled up to this point, and I lost. So even if you don't use Kamari that much, you should at least use him enough to have him ready for this fight. We beat the two other guys, and we continue on the fight, and they agree, along with the Ronso member who was a part of Yevon, to block any Yevon people who come along to try to stop Yuna. They are on Yuna's side and say she is a much stronger Ronso, and they said they would build a statue for her with a horn on it. So now they're going up Mount Gagaset, which is very cold and freezing, and it's apparently where many summoners end their pilgrimage or die along the way. And once again, at this point, we run into Seymour once again, and this will be like the second or third Seymour fight. I might have missed one. This is the Seymour fight that I literally could not beat at one point when I was a child. Didn't play it and came back like a year later and just restarted the game just to finally beat him, because I think I just over leveled that the next time I came back. You beat Seymour, and it also, he lets you know that a lot of Ronso just threw themselves at the Guado who were coming up to defend you. Like, so a lot of Ronso were slaughtered trying to protect you and put that extra salt in the wound. They get to Mount Gagas at the top, and you see, I think, like a bunch of faith at the top up there. And this, like, I forgot how this does tie into the story, but it kind of links into whole Tidus' story. From there, you go to the Calm Lands. I actually missed it. The Calm Lands was right before Mount Gagaset. So the Calm Lands was before this. You also go to the Temple of the Stolen Aeon, which is where you would pick up Yojimbo. I missed that part, but after Mount Gagaset and all of that, you are starting to go right before, like, I guess the final part before you meet Unaleska, where she throws a big old boss fight at you. It's kind of like this spacey, weird area. And then eventually you meet Unaleska, and that's where the big old bomb drops. Well, the second bomb drops. The first bomb drop that I forgot to mention is when you're in home rescuing Yuna, is where they tell you Yuna dies at the end of her pilgrimage. And Tidus feels very dumb telling Yuna all the cool stuff we can do after your pilgrimage is over. Now the second bomb drop is Unaleska has to tell Yuna, yes, you can summon the final Aeon, but you must sacrifice one of your guardians to be the final Aeon. So basically someone has to die. And this is when everyone kind of loses it. Calm, collected, Lulu finally kind of snaps, and she's like, what? I can't, we went through all of this, and this is what we have to do. And Unaleska's like, yeah, I did it with my husband. I sacrificed him and I defeated sin. So Unaleska tells Yuna, now it's time for you to sacrifice somebody so you can bring the calm. Also, Yuna is named after Lady Unaleska. That's why their names sound similar. Basically, Yuna decides she can't do it, and Unaleska's like, you're stupid, and she decides to kill all of them. Well, she doesn't. She loses. Her fight is so annoying. She casts zombie and like death, and you just gotta keep making sure you have someone on your team who's in zombie mode, so they don't kill everybody. I remember it's such an annoying boss fight until you figure out how it works. But usually the first time you ever play it is just kind of annoying. After you beat Lady Unaleska, Yevon is person in the first place, and if Jet was ever real either. So the final scene of the game is, well, not the final scene, but one of the final parts of the game is Tita's slowly disappearing, and Yuna can't believe it. She tries to hug him in the balls. She confesses her love to Titus, which I think is only in the English version, not in the Japanese version. Titus goes away, gives his dad a high five on the way out. Also, after you defeat Sid, Orin also goes away as well. His job is done. He passes on as well. And then the game basically ends from there. I guess one thing I didn't bring up throughout the game is throughout the game you start seeing like sphere recordings that Jet leaves behind. You can tell throughout the recordings, Jet thinks he's going to come back. He's like, oh, this is like a field trip. I'm eventually gonna back to Xanarkand. But as the videos go on, he slowly starts to realize, I'm not going back home, am I? And throughout his time on his travels, Jack used to be a drunk, but he sobers up. He tries to give Tita some advice and makes peace with the fact that he's never going back to Xanarkand, which brings like more to Jet's character, because throughout the story, Tita just talks about how awful his dad is, which Jet is a bad guy. He is not a good father. He is not a good person, and it only takes all of like his popularity and fame and everything else is taken away for him to come to realize that, oh, there's other